They thought they'd found easy targets, two black twins, cornered by prejudice and arrogance. But what this team of racist officers didn't realize was that these two brothers weren't just any civilians, they were elite special forces soldiers with years of combat training. As tension explodes into action, the hunters quickly become the hunted, facing skills they could never anticipate. How will this intense showdown unfold? Watch the full story now, and don't forget to subscribe and like our channel for more gripping content like this. The scene begins with two black twin brothers, Jason and Jordan, walking along a quiet street, their postures relaxed but their senses on high alert. Their years of training as elite soldiers had instilled in them a natural awareness of their surroundings. Tonight, however, the streets felt heavier, burdened by an unspoken tension. From the shadows, a patrol car crept closer, its headlights casting long, distorted beams on the cracked pavement. Inside, two officers, Harrington and Doyle, exchanged a knowing glance. Harrington gripped the steering wheel tightly, his jaw clenched, while Doyle adjusted his hat, eyes narrowing as they locked onto the brothers. The car pulled up alongside Jason and Jordan, the engine's hum breaking the silence. Without preamble, Harrington stepped out, his posture stiff, authority emanating from every movement. Doyle followed, his hand resting casually on the grip of his holstered weapon. The tension in the air became palpable. Harrington's voice cut through the stillness, sharp and commanding. He demanded identification, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. Jason and Jordan exchanged a brief glance. Jason's expression remained calm, but his eyes held a steely resolve. Jordan's jaw tightened, his irritation barely concealed. Jason reached into his pocket slowly, retrieving his wallet. He handed over his ID without a word, his movements deliberate and measured. Harrington examined the card, flipping it over as though searching for something to confirm his suspicions. Doyle's eyes darted between the brothers, his unease evident despite his attempt at bravado. Jordan's patience thinned as Harrington's scrutiny dragged on. His voice broke the silence, sharp and clear. The question hung in the air, pointed and unyielding, challenging the officer's intentions. Harrington's grip on the ID tightened, his lips pressing into a thin line. Doyle's hand shifted on his holster, a subtle but unmistakable gesture that spoke volumes. Jason stepped slightly in front of his brother, his posture protective. The action wasn't lost on the officers, and the atmosphere grew heavier with unspoken threats. Harrington returned the ID with a sharp flick of his wrist, his expression unreadable. He barked a terse order, demanding they submit to a search. Jason's calm voice cut through the tension, refusing with quiet authority. The refusal seemed to ignite something in Harrington, his temper flaring as his voice rose. The escalation was sudden. Doyle's hand moved toward his weapon, but before he could draw it, Jason's training kicked in. His movements were swift and precise, disarming Doyle in a fluid motion. Jordan stepped in, intercepting Harrington's advance with a calculated strike that sent the officer stumbling back. The brothers moved as one, their years of experience in high-stakes combat evident in their coordination. Every action was deliberate, their responses measured. They neutralized the officers without inflicting serious harm, leaving them disoriented but conscious. With the situation under control, Jason and Jordan quickly assessed their surroundings. They knew the altercation would draw attention, and staying in the area wasn't an option. Jason retrieved Doyle's radio, listening briefly before discarding it. He signaled to Jordan, and the two disappeared into the night, their movements silent and purposeful. As they navigated the darkened streets, their minds raced. This encounter wasn't random. The officers' behavior hinted at something more calculated, something targeted. They needed answers, and they knew where to start looking. The brothers reached a safe house, a nondescript building hidden in plain sight. Inside, they reviewed the events of the night. Jason's mind pieced together the clues, his instincts telling him this was only the beginning. Jordan's frustration boiled over, his voice cutting through the quiet as he vented his anger. Jason's calm response grounded his brother, refocusing their energy on the task at hand. Their conversation was interrupted by a faint noise outside. Both men tensed, their senses sharpening. Jason moved to the window, his sharp eyes scanning the street. A shadow moved in the periphery, and he signaled to Jordan. They weren't alone. The next moments were a blur of calculated action. The door burst open, and a group of armed men stormed in, their movements aggressive and coordinated. Jason and Jordan sprang into action, their training taking over. The room became a battleground, every piece of furniture turned into cover or a weapon. The attackers underestimated their opponents. Jason and Jordan moved with lethal precision, their synergy unmatched. Within minutes, the assailants were incapacitated, groaning on the floor. Jason grabbed one by the collar, his voice cold and demanding as he questioned the man. The answers came reluctantly, each word dragged out under Jason's relentless gaze. The man revealed a name, a location, and a chilling motive. The brothers exchanged a glance, their resolve solidifying. This wasn't over. Leaving the attackers restrained, Jason and Jordan slipped back into the night. Their destination was clear, their purpose unwavering. The events of the evening had set something in motion, a chain reaction that couldn't be undone. They were ready for whatever came next. The second act begins with the tension building from the aftermath of the twins' calculated escape from the previous confrontation. Their movements are deliberate but unhurried, their military instincts honed to perfection as they disappear into the shadows, leaving their pursuers disoriented. Meanwhile, the opposing forces, the group of prejudiced officers, gather to reassess their failed operation, frustration and egos clashing in a volatile mix. The lead officer, Hawkins, a seasoned but cynical figure, paces back and forth. He's visibly upset, barking orders at the junior officers. He's convinced that what appeared to be two vulnerable targets are in fact trained operatives. The other officers exchange uneasy glances, uncertain whether to question his authority or follow his increasingly erratic leadership. Elsewhere, the twins regroup in a nondescript location. Their breaths are controlled, their movements synchronized, a testament to years of training and trust. Jason checks the minimal injuries they sustained while Jordan maps out the next steps. Both are acutely aware that this is no ordinary group of adversaries. The officers' methods were too precise, their movements too rehearsed. This wasn't a random act of discrimination, it was premeditated. Back at the precinct, Hawkins' frustration grows. He convenes a covert meeting with a select few. His tone is sharp, dripping with contempt as he outlines a strategy to flush out the imposters. The discussion reveals a deeper conspiracy. This isn't just about the twins but part of a broader agenda targeting individuals in their community. Hawkins emphasizes the importance of maintaining control, hinting at powerful figures backing their actions. Meanwhile, the twins' investigation deepens. Jordan hacks into a private database using a laptop hidden in their safe house. The screen flashes with encrypted files linked to Hawkins and his team. As the information unravels, a chilling picture emerges. The group operates under the guise of law enforcement, but with ulterior motives fueled by prejudice and a hunger for control. The narrative shifts to Hawkins, who receives a call from an unnamed superior. The voice on the other end is calm but firm, instructing Hawkins to escalate the operation. Hawkins' demeanor hardens as he listens, his sense of authority bolstered by the assurance of protection from above. The scene captures the fragility of his ego, as much as the depth of his ambition. Simultaneously, the twins make a breakthrough. Jason deciphers a coded message indicating an upcoming rendezvous between Hawkins and his mysterious allies. They recognize this as their chance to gather irrefutable evidence. The twins' approach is methodical. Their military background becomes evident as they devise a plan to infiltrate the meeting. As the night deepens, Hawkins gathers his trusted officers. The meeting location is remote, chosen for its seclusion. Hawkins briefs his team, his words laced with overconfidence. He's unaware that the twins are already on site, watching from the shadows. Their earpieces buzz softly as they coordinate movements, each step calculated to minimize noise and visibility. Tension escalates as the officers arrive one by one. The twins observe silently, noting the patterns of interaction and the hierarchy within the group. They notice a distinct figure, a man in civilian clothing whose demeanor exudes power and influence. This man, they deduce, is the link between Hawkins and the larger operation. The twins' opportunity comes when the group disperses momentarily. Jason moves swiftly, planting a bug near their vehicles while Jordan remains on watch. Their precision is unmatched, every action executed without hesitation. As they retreat, the bug captures snippets of conversation, revealing plans for a larger-scale operation targeting their community. Back at their hideout, the twins analyze the audio. The evidence confirms their suspicions. Hawkins' actions are part of a systemic effort to undermine their neighborhood. The recording also exposes the identity of the civilian figure, a powerful businessman with deep political ties. The twins realize the complexity of their fight. It's no longer just about survival but dismantling a corrupt system. At the precinct, Hawkins grows increasingly paranoid. The bugged conversation has reached him, though he's unaware of its origin. His temper flares as he berates his subordinates, accusing them of leaks and incompetence. The once confident leader is now visibly unraveling, his authority eroded by fear and uncertainty. The twins prepare for their next move. They know that confronting Hawkins directly would be reckless. Instead, they focus on exposing the operation publicly. They compile the evidence meticulously, aware that one misstep could jeopardize everything. Their resolve strengthens, fueled by the stakes involved. As dawn breaks, Hawkins' paranoia reaches its peak. He orders a citywide operation to locate the twins, mobilizing his team with a desperation that belies his outward confidence. The streets become a battleground, with patrols increasing and tensions rising. Community members sense the tension but remain unaware of the looming conflict. The twins, however, stay ahead of the curve. They use their military training to navigate the city undetected, blending seamlessly into their surroundings. Their movements are fluid, their senses heightened as they anticipate every potential threat. The narrative captures their unyielding determination, juxtaposed against Hawkins' crumbling composure. The act concludes with a dramatic confrontation. The twins intercept Hawkins' team in an abandoned warehouse, using the terrain to their advantage. The fight is intense, a choreographed blend of strategy and combat. Hawkins realizes too late that he's underestimated his adversaries. The twins leave him incapacitated, his team scattered. As they disappear into the night, their victory feels bittersweet. They've won the battle, but the war against a corrupt system looms large. Their journey is far from over, but their resolve is unshaken. The scene closes with the twins reaffirming their commitment to justice, their silhouettes fading into the shadows as the city awakens to a new day. The night deepened as the twins, Jason and Jordan, regrouped in a secluded corner of the city. Their faces bore the marks of exhaustion, but their eyes remained sharp, scanning their surroundings. The revelations from the earlier encounter weighed heavily on their minds. The police unit targeting them had escalated their actions, and it was clear this was no coincidence. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit office, Captain Harris of the precinct reviewed a dossier containing profiles of the twins. The photos highlighted their military background and commendations, details that had been deliberately omitted in the initial reports provided to him. Harris's brow furrowed. He was torn between the orders from higher-ups and the unease creeping into his conscience. Across the room, Detective Monroe entered, her expression unreadable. She'd been following Harris's involvement closely and suspected there was more at play. Elsewhere, Officer Daniels, a younger member of the task force, sat in his patrol car, nervously glancing at the file on his passenger seat. It detailed the covert operations targeting the twins, and his unease grew with each passing moment. He didn't sign up for this kind of policing. The guilt gnawed at him as he wrestled with the thought of coming forward. Back at the twins' hideout, Jason reviewed their strategy. He laid out a map of the city, marking potential choke points and escape routes. Jordan's voice broke the silence, filled with a mix of frustration and determination. The twins knew their time was running out. They couldn't stay hidden forever, and with the recent escalation, they needed to act fast. Their first move was to gather intel. They decided to split up temporarily, a tactic they rarely used but deemed necessary under the circumstances. Jason infiltrated a local precinct to access records, relying on his training to blend in and navigate the building's labyrinthine layout. Jordan, meanwhile, tracked down a contact who had ties to the underground network of informants. Each faced their own challenges. Jason narrowly avoided detection when a suspicious officer lingered near the records room, while Jordan had to fend off a group of street thugs who mistook him for an easy target. At the precinct, Harris paced his office. Monroe confronted him, her tone sharp but controlled. She'd pieced together fragments of the operation and demanded answers. Harris's reluctance was palpable, but Monroe's persistence paid off as he reluctantly disclosed the existence of the task force targeting the twins. Monroe's expression hardened. She knew this wasn't just about two men. It was systemic, and she resolved to dig deeper. Jason's infiltration bore fruit. He found a list of operatives involved in the operation and a cryptic mention of Project Unity, a classified directive tied to higher authorities. He quickly copied the data onto a flash drive, slipping out just as a patrol entered the area. The close call left his heart pounding, but his resolve strengthened. Jordan's meeting with the informant provided additional pieces to the puzzle. The informant revealed that Project Unity was more than a localized operation. It was part of a broader initiative aimed at targeting specific demographics under the guise of maintaining order. The twins were marked not just for their military background, but because they represented a challenge to the existing power structures. As the twins regrouped, sharing their findings, the reality of the situation crystallized. They were up against a well-funded and deeply entrenched system. Their next move had to be calculated. They decided to expose the operation by forcing a confrontation that would draw public attention. In the precinct, Monroe's investigation gained momentum. She uncovered communications linking key officials to the operation. Her discovery came at a cost, as her actions drew the attention of those keen on silencing dissent. Harris's growing unease turned into outright defiance. He approached Monroe with an offer to help, providing her with access to files that corroborated her suspicions. The tension reached a boiling point as the twins set their plan into motion. They baited the task force into a trap, using a decoy to lure them into an abandoned warehouse. The confrontation was intense, with the twins employing their tactical skills to outmaneuver their pursuers. Jason and Jordan's synergy was unmatched, each move complementing the other as they neutralized threats without causing permanent harm. Amid the chaos, Captain Harris and Detective Monroe arrived, tipped off by a cryptic message from the twins. They witnessed firsthand the brutality of the task force's methods and the lengths to which the system went to suppress dissent. Harris's internal conflict reached its climax. He ordered his men to stand down, creating a rift within the ranks. The twins confronted Harris and Monroe, their expressions a mix of suspicion and determination. Harris spoke candidly, acknowledging his role and offering to help dismantle the operation. Monroe backed him, presenting evidence she'd gathered. The alliance was uneasy but necessary. As the dust settled, the media alerted by anonymous tips descended on the scene. The twins, Harris and Monroe faced the cameras, exposing the corruption and systemic biases that fueled Project Unity. The fallout was immediate. Public outcry forced officials to respond, and the operation was officially disbanded. However, the twins knew this was only the beginning. They'd won a battle, but the war for justice was far from over. The scene ended with the twins fading into the shadows, their mission far from complete. Harris and Monroe remained behind, their resolve strengthened. The stage was set for the next phase of their fight against the system that had tried to silence them. The air in the command room crackled with tension as the two officers laid out the aftermath of the operation. The team's focus shifted to analyzing the fragments of data recovered from the rogue unit. Details began to emerge in encrypted communications, coded language, and a map highlighting strategic positions across the city. It became evident that the targets were not isolated civilians, but influential figures linked to community reform. The commanding officer's gaze swept over the room, landing on the twins, Jason and Jordan. Their silent exchange carried the weight of unspoken understanding. They were no longer dealing with a rogue group. This was an orchestrated effort with roots that extended far beyond what was immediately visible. Jason initiated the plan. They'd split into two teams. One would intercept communications while the other would trace the source of the operations. Jordan would lead the tracking team, their knowledge of covert operations a critical advantage. In the field, Jordan's team maneuvered with precision. Every step brought them closer to a dilapidated warehouse, where intel suggested the ringleaders were hiding. They encountered resistance. Shadows emerged from the corners, masked figures attacking with calculated aggression. It was clear they were trained, not the usual street-level operatives. The team's movements were fluid, every counterattack and defense seamless as they pushed through. Inside the warehouse, the tension thickened. The operation's orchestrators were seated around a makeshift table, their conversation heated as they reviewed maps and documents. Jason's team approached from a secondary entrance, their movements silent as they breached the perimeter. They used the element of surprise to their advantage, incapacitating several guards before entering the main room. Chaos erupted. The ringleaders fought back, revealing they were more prepared than anticipated. Jason locked eyes with the group's leader, a towering figure with a calm yet menacing demeanor. Their confrontation was inevitable. Jason's training kicked in as he deflected a strike, countering with precision. Around them, the room descended into a brawl. Jordan's voice came through the comms, signaling they had intercepted a critical transmission. The leaders had planned an imminent attack to cripple the city's power grid. The urgency escalated. Jason delivered a calculated blow, rendering the leader unconscious. He ordered the team to gather all intel before evacuating. The twins regrouped outside the warehouse, the weight of their discovery pressing heavily on them. As the team reviewed the seized documents, it became clear that the threat extended beyond the city. The operation was part of a nationwide effort targeting key reform advocates. The commanding officer demanded an immediate briefing. The room fell silent as Jason outlined their findings, the gravity of the situation settling over everyone present. This wasn't just a rogue faction, it was a coordinated assault on progress. Determined to act swiftly, the team mobilized. They reached out to allied units in other cities, sharing intel and coordinating defenses. Jason and Jordan's roles became pivotal, their experience in dismantling complex operations critical to the mission's success. As the night deepened, the twins prepared for the next phase. Their silent resolve was unshakable. They understood the stakes. This wasn't just about stopping an attack, it was about protecting the future. The police headquarters buzzed with urgency. Detectives huddled around a central table where dossiers, maps, and surveillance photos sprawled chaotically. The commanding officer, gruff and no-nonsense, outlined the operation. It was clear now that the twin brothers, previously thought to be simple targets, were far more dangerous than anyone anticipated. The intelligence revealed their military backgrounds, detailing operations in hostile territories where they had executed high-stakes missions with precision and efficiency. This was no ordinary arrest, it was now a tactical takedown. In the midst of the preparations, Officer Harris exchanged a look with his partner Delgado. Both men carried their own brand of prejudice, but now it was laced with unease. Their last encounter with the twins had left a mark not just physically but psychologically. Harris adjusted his tactical vest, muttering to Delgado that tonight would be different. Delgado nodded but kept his thoughts to himself, replaying the scene where the twins had outmaneuvered them with ease. The scene shifted to the twins, Jason and Jordan, holed up in a safe house. The atmosphere was tense but focused. Jordan meticulously cleaned his weapon, while Jason reviewed the limited intelligence they had gathered about the upcoming raid. Their shared glances spoke volumes, a silent language forged in battle and brotherhood. Jason broke the silence, laying out a plan that was as much about survival as it was about exposing the corruption within the police force. They knew their opponents would come prepared, but the twins' edge lay in their ability to anticipate moves and think several steps ahead. Hours later, under the cover of darkness, the police convoy rolled into the industrial district where the twins were reportedly hiding. Harris and Delgado led the charge, their voices steady over the comms as they relayed orders. Officers fanned out, taking positions around the building. The twins, observing from a concealed vantage point, exchanged a quick nod before moving into action. They had spent the last hours fortifying their position, setting traps designed not to harm but to slow and disorient the intruders. The first trap sprung as an officer breached the side door, triggering a flashbang that disoriented the team. Chaos erupted on the comms as officers reported their positions and regrouped. Jason moved silently through the shadows, disabling equipment and cutting off their communication lines. Meanwhile, Jordan took a defensive position, his sharp eyes scanning for opportunities to turn the tables further. Harris, frustrated by the lack of progress, ordered a direct assault. Delgado hesitated, suggesting they fall back and reassess, but Harris's pride wouldn't allow it. He pushed forward with a squad, determined to bring the twins down. What followed was a game of cat and mouse through the labyrinthine building. The twins' intimate knowledge of urban warfare tactics gave them a significant advantage. They moved with precision, turning the officers' aggression against them, drawing them deeper into the building while avoiding direct confrontation. At one point, Harris found himself separated from his team. The dim lighting and echoing sounds played tricks on his mind. He heard footsteps behind him and turned, weapon raised, but found nothing. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up as he realized he was being watched. Before he could react, Jordan emerged from the shadows, disarming him with a swift and calculated move. Harris hit the ground hard, his radio crackling with frantic voices calling for him. Jordan loomed over him for a moment, a look of controlled anger in his eyes, before retreating into the darkness. Elsewhere, Delgado and his squad found themselves cornered. Jason appeared at the far end of the hallway, his presence a calculated move to draw their fire. As they advanced, he lured them into a makeshift barricade, where Jordan was waiting. The ensuing confrontation was intense but short-lived. The twins' strategy was not to engage fully but to incapacitate and escape, leaving the officers scrambling to regroup. By the time the police force managed to regain some semblance of order, the twins had already vanished. The safe house was empty, save for a message scrawled on the wall: "Corruption ends here." Harris, bruised and seething, read the words with a mix of rage and fear. Delgado placed a hand on his shoulder, but the gesture did little to calm him. This was no longer a simple operation, it was personal. The aftermath saw the twins regrouping at a secondary location. Their escape was not without cost. Jason nursed a minor injury, while Jordan methodically reviewed the intel they had gathered during the confrontation. Among the confiscated items was a flash drive containing incriminating evidence against key figures in the police department. The twins' mission was now clear: expose the corruption at all costs. Meanwhile, within the police department, tensions ran high. Harris faced scrutiny for the failed operation, his reputation hanging by a thread. Delgado, torn between loyalty to his partner and the growing realization of the corruption around them, began to question everything. As he reviewed the footage from the raid, he couldn't shake the feeling that the twins were more than just fugitives, they were warriors on a righteous mission. As the dust settled, both sides prepared for the inevitable next encounter. The twins fortified their resolve, knowing the road ahead would be treacherous. The police force, led by a vengeful Harris, doubled down on their efforts, bringing in reinforcements and escalating their tactics. The stage was set for a battle not just of strength but of ideals, where the lines between right and wrong blurred, leaving everyone questioning their own motives and actions. The twins, Jason and Jordan, stood poised at the edge of an impending storm. The calm that preceded chaos always seemed louder to them, a roaring silence before the action. Across town, a team of officers sat in a cramped surveillance van, their leader, Sergeant Miller, flipping through pages of reports with mounting frustration. Miller's sharp tone cut through the air as he briefed his team on the operation, painting the twins as threats, not for their actions, but for their audacity to exist as black men who excelled where others failed. Miller had underestimated them before and paid for it. He wouldn't make the same mistake twice. His plan was set, involving a tightly coordinated raid targeting the twins at their supposed safe house. The officers murmured among themselves, some uneasy about the forceful tactics. Others, emboldened by Miller's rhetoric, viewed the twins as their ultimate challenge. Meanwhile, Jason and Jordan prepped their gear, a quiet synchronization between them that spoke of years spent relying on each other. The mission had evolved beyond self-defense. They were digging deeper, uncovering corruption within the force itself. The data drive Jason had retrieved in the previous encounter held damning evidence, and their goal now was to deliver it to an investigative journalist willing to expose the truth. Across town, Miller's unit mobilized. The officers loaded into armored vehicles, their radios buzzing with chatter. Miller's voice crackled over the comms, instructing them to treat this as a high-risk operation. He emphasized containment and domination, a show of force to send a message. As the vehicles rolled out, Miller's partner, Officer Torres, hesitated. She'd seen enough to question Miller's motives, but knew speaking up now could put her in the crosshairs. The twins moved under cover of night, their escape planned down to the last detail. Jason carried the drive, its encrypted files their ticket to exposing the systemic rot. Jordan kept an eye on their six, his instincts sharper than ever. The air between them was charged, not with fear but with determination. They knew the stakes and embraced the challenge. Miller's convoy arrived at the safe house, only to find it abandoned. The team stormed the premises, overturning furniture and smashing through locked doors, but the twins were nowhere to be found. Frustration boiled over, and Miller barked orders to expand the search. Torres kept her observations to herself, her unease growing with every heavy-handed decision. Miles away, the twins rendezvoused with their contact, a journalist named Elena Cruz. Elena was skeptical at first, wary of the risks involved in exposing police corruption. But as Jason laid out the evidence, her demeanor shifted. The files detailed not only Miller's vendetta against them, but also a broader network of abuses within the department. Elena agreed to help, her conviction matching their own. As the trio strategized, Miller received intel on their location from an informant. With grim satisfaction, he directed his team to converge on the meeting spot. The officers approached in silence, their weapons ready, adrenaline coursing through their veins. Miller planned to capture the twins and destroy the evidence, tying up loose ends in one fell swoop. Jason's ears picked up the faint hum of engines before Jordan signaled the incoming threat. The twins sprang into action, guiding Elena to a concealed exit. "Get the drive to safety," Jason urged her, his tone firm. Elena hesitated but saw the resolve in their eyes. She nodded and disappeared into the night, clutching the drive like a lifeline. The officers breached the perimeter, their tactical formation precise. The twins split up, using their training to outmaneuver the advancing force. Jason led a group of officers on a chase through narrow alleyways, his movements calculated to draw them away from Jordan. He relied on agility and misdirection, slipping through their grasp with ease. Jordan, meanwhile, engaged in a series of calculated takedowns, his strength and precision overwhelming the officers who cornered him. Each move was deliberate, designed to disable without causing lasting harm. He knew their fight was against the system, not individuals, and maintained control despite the chaos. Miller grew increasingly agitated as reports of his officers' failures poured in. He grabbed a rifle and joined the pursuit, determined to take matters into his own hands. Torres followed reluctantly, her doubts about Miller reaching a tipping point. She'd seen the twins' discipline and realized they weren't the criminals Miller painted them to be. Jason doubled back to regroup with Jordan, the two meeting in an abandoned warehouse. They barricaded the entrances, buying themselves time to plan their next move. Jason's mind raced, calculating their options. Jordan kept watch, his body tense but his focus unwavering. "We're not just running," Jason said. "We're setting the stage." Miller and his team surrounded the warehouse, their floodlights cutting through the darkness. He demanded their surrender, his voice amplified by a bullhorn. Jason responded with silence, knowing it would unnerve their opponent. Inside, the twins prepared a series of diversions, using the environment to their advantage. The first explosion startled the officers, a controlled detonation that sent debris raining down. The twins used the confusion to strike, emerging from the shadows to disarm their pursuers. Their actions were swift and precise, a testament to their training. They moved like ghosts, impossible to pin down. Torres hesitated as the chaos unfolded. She saw the twins' restraint, their focus on avoiding unnecessary harm. It was a stark contrast to Miller's escalating aggression. When Miller ordered a full assault, Torres defied him, pulling back and calling for a ceasefire. Her actions sowed discord among the officers, some following her lead while others remained loyal to Miller. In the midst of the turmoil, Miller confronted the twins directly. His fury drove him to recklessness, and he underestimated their cohesion. Jason and Jordan worked in tandem, countering his every move. The fight was brutal but brief, ending with Miller disarmed and incapacitated. The remaining officers stood down, realizing the futility of their actions. Elena reappeared with reinforcements, a team of independent journalists and legal advocates who had received the evidence. The tide turned as the truth came to light, Miller's corruption exposed for all to see. The twins stepped into the spotlight, their courage and resilience inspiring a movement for accountability. As the night gave way to dawn, the battlefield transformed into a platform for change. The twins had fought not just for themselves, but for a future where justice prevailed. Their journey was far from over, but they faced it together, unyielding in their pursuit of what was right. The atmosphere was charged with tension as the twins approached the headquarters. This was the heart of the operation, the last stand against the corrupt officers who had been hunting them. Every move had to be calculated, precise, for failure was not an option. Jason and Jordan exchanged a brief glance, their silent communication conveying more than words ever could. They had come too far to falter now. Inside the building, Captain Riggs paced with frustration. His plan to eliminate the twins and cover up years of abuse and corruption was unraveling. The twins' relentless pursuit had put him on edge, and he barked orders to his subordinates to tighten security. His team of officers, a mix of loyalists and reluctant participants, moved with urgency, their loyalty shaken by recent events. Meanwhile, the twins infiltrated the perimeter with practiced ease. Jason's sharp eyes caught every detail, while Jordan's instincts guided their movements. They navigated the shadows, avoiding patrols and security cameras. Each step brought them closer to the main control room, where they hoped to find evidence to expose Riggs and his operation. As they moved deeper, Jordan caught sight of a guard and signaled Jason. They waited in silence, their breathing controlled, until the guard passed. Jordan whispered that the control room was 2 floors up. Jason nodded, and they moved swiftly but cautiously. Inside the control room, Sergeant Hayes monitored the building's security systems. Unlike Riggs, Hayes had doubts about their actions. He had seen too much injustice to fully support the captain's vendetta against the twins. When Hayes noticed a flicker on one of the monitors, he hesitated before alerting the others. His hesitation allowed the twins to slip closer unnoticed. The twins reached the stairwell leading to the control room. As they ascended, Jason stopped abruptly, raising his hand to signal danger. Voices echoed from above. Riggs' most trusted enforcers were stationed near the control room. The twins retreated a few steps to reassess their plan. Jordan suggested creating a distraction to draw the enforcers away. Jason agreed and quickly devised a plan. Using a small device from their gear, Jordan set a timed explosion on a nearby generator. The sound reverberated through the building, and the enforcers moved to investigate. With the path cleared, the twins moved in. In the control room, Hayes flinched at the sound of the explosion. His hand hovered over the alarm button, but he hesitated again. Riggs' voice crackled over the radio, demanding a status update. Hayes responded with a vague report, buying the twins a few precious moments. The twins entered the control room swiftly. Hayes turned, startled, but Jason raised a hand, signaling peace. Jordan explained their mission, revealing the corruption and abuse they had uncovered. Hayes' expression softened as he listened. He confessed his own doubts about Riggs and agreed to help them access the building's surveillance and records. Together, they retrieved files and footage exposing the operation's illegal activities. Hayes downloaded the data onto a secure drive, handing it to the twins. As they prepared to leave, the door burst open. Riggs' enforcers had returned, weapons drawn. A tense standoff ensued. Riggs, alerted by the commotion, arrived moments later. His eyes burned with fury as he confronted the twins. He accused them of undermining law and order, of being the real criminals. Jason countered with calm resolve, exposing Riggs' lies and presenting the evidence. Riggs' enforcers hesitated, their loyalty wavering in the face of truth. The confrontation escalated into a fierce battle. The twins fought with the precision of their training, using their surroundings to their advantage. Hayes, caught in the chaos, sided with the twins, using his knowledge of the building to disable certain systems and create opportunities for escape. Riggs, refusing to surrender, pursued the twins through the building. He was determined to silence them at any cost. The chase was relentless, each turn and corridor filled with danger. The twins used their wits and skills to stay ahead, but Riggs' determination made him a formidable adversary. Finally, the twins reached the rooftop. They were cornered, but they refused to back down. Riggs emerged, his weapon aimed and his face twisted with rage. He demanded the evidence, threatening to kill them both. Jason stepped forward, his voice steady, challenging Riggs' authority and exposing his true nature. As Riggs hesitated, the sound of approaching sirens filled the air. Hayes had managed to alert external authorities, bringing reinforcements to the scene. Riggs' expression shifted from anger to panic. He realized his time was up. In a desperate move, Riggs lunged at Jason, but Jordan intercepted him. The struggle was intense, both sides fueled by adrenaline and conviction. In the end, Riggs was overpowered, restrained by the twins until the authorities arrived. As the police took Riggs into custody, the twins handed over the evidence. The officers on site, many of whom had been unaware of Riggs' actions, expressed their gratitude. Hayes stepped forward, ready to testify against Riggs and his accomplices. The aftermath was bittersweet. The twins had achieved their goal, but the scars of their journey remained. They watched as Riggs was taken away, knowing that justice had prevailed but at great personal cost. As the dawn broke, they stood side by side, united by their bond and their unwavering commitment to the truth. The story ended with a sense of hope. The twins had dismantled a corrupt system, paving the way for change. Their actions inspired others to stand against injustice, proving that courage and resilience could overcome even the darkest of adversities.